Morning. I'd like to call the May 20th, 2010 Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. If you will all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance by rising. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, all. We have on our agenda first a reading and adoption of land use ordinance, and this is the continuation of the public hearing for groundwater protection, and we have Dan Chandler to give us an update from County Council.
Good morning, Dan Chandler, Assistant County Counsel. This is our groundwater protection ordinance, ZDO 222. By way of a brief background,
It's
Planning
hailing.
Commission
It's
recommended
water for
approval.
Groundwater.
It's not groundwater yet. Planning Commission recommended approval of this ordinance by a unanimous vote on March 8th. The board heard this matter and took public testimony to public hearing on April 26th. At that hearing, the board elected to continue this matter to today for a decision to allow all of the commissioners to participate. Since the board members present generally indicated, without voting, indicated their support of the ordinance, staff has gone ahead and prepared a final ordinance for adoption today should the board approve it. I want to give a brief explanation for this morning's process because it's a little bit new. Because this is a land use ordinance, it comes to you for adoption after an extensive public hearing process and notice process. Because of that, we can do a reading and adoption of the ordinance today if the board chooses to do so, without having an additional second reading later. So we can go ahead and take final action today in one step without a first and second reading. Thank you.
So just for clarification, I have here closed the public hearing.
Yes.
Where did I open it?
Pardon me?
It's open on the agenda.
Yeah.
It's open on the agenda.
So the process would be go ahead and open the public hearing for deliberation and motions on the approval
Okay.
of the ordinance as presented by staff. We can then move on to, again, if it passes, move on to first reading and adoption and subsequent motions.
All right, Dan, I'm going to need your help because I'm still not, we need to be a little bit more clear. So this is a public hearing for decision only,
Yes.
but is there testimony allowed?
No.
There we go. Thank you. Okay. So because this is a public hearing for decision only, and that's the way we continued it, there is no testimony. And so the question now before us, before we move into the adoption phase, is do we have any clarifying questions on the groundwater ordinance itself before we move into that?
Chair Peterson,
Commissioner
I
Austin?
do not. Maybe this is not the best time, but I would like to recognize many of the people who've worked on this issue for us, our staff, a lot of the expert advisors and members of the public. So
Should we do that at the end?
can I do that at the end? Okay.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Great.
Okay. So if there are no further questions for staff, then I'll ask for a motion to approve ZDO 222 groundwater protection.
Chair Peterson, I move we approve ZDO 222 groundwater protection ordinance as presented by staff on April 26th, 2010.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Bernard. It has been moved by Commissioner Leininger and seconded by Commissioner Bernard. Is there any further discussion on the issue? In that case, all in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion is approved. Thank you. So we'll close the public hearing for the decision only and ask for a motion to read the ordinance ZDO 222 by title only.
Chair Peterson, I move we read ordinance ZDO 222 groundwater protection by title only.
It's been moved by Commissioner Austin and seconded by Commissioner Lehan. Is there any further discussion? With that, we'll move to all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Mary, will you read the...
Yes, ordinance number ZDO-222, an ordinance amending Chapter 3 of the Clackamas County Comprehensive Plan in Sections 1000 and 1011 to the Clackamas County Zoning and Development Ordinance.
Great.
1100.
Thank you. I ask for a motion to adopt ordinance ZDO 222 groundwater protection.
Chair Peterson, I move we adopt ordinance ZDO 222 groundwater protection.
Do you have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Austin and seconded by Commissioner Bernard. Any further discussion?
Okay,
Perhaps
good opportunity.
Commissioner
So, Chair Peterson, thank you. I would really like to thank a lot of the folks who've worked on this for us. It's been an issue that has been discussed at the county level for probably quite some time, and we've had just lots of interest in it. So to start off with, I'd really love to thank our staff, Dan Chandler, sitting over here on my left, Lorraine Gonzalez, Rick McIntyre, Jennifer Hughes, and Martha Nix. There probably were some other folks, but those are the main contributors to what we see in front of us today. We've depended upon a lot of expert advisors, too, from Oregon Water Resources Department, some of their staff, like Mike McCord and Doug Woodcock. We've also had discussions with Marion and Benton County staff. I've had some discussions even with some of the commissioners on what they looked at and what some of their issues were. So also Malia Kupilis, Pacific Hydrogeology Incorporated. There are also many members of the public, and some of those are here today. John and Judy Messner. I would miss them if they weren't here when we had discussions on this issue at any time. So they've been very active and involved. Bernard Newland has been very involved as well. Ernie's here, Ernie Platt. A lot of folks from either side, from the home builder side, developer side, the homeowner side. So just I think a lot of common interests came forward in the development and ultimate look of this ordinance. And also want to mention Mr. Gordon Root as well has been very active in this. So thanks everyone. Hopefully if I've missed someone, I apologize for that, but a lot of folks were actively involved, and a lot of us commissioners were involved in numerous meetings, phone calls, discussions to try to make this into an ordinance that best meet all of our needs. So thank you all.
Great. Thank you for going through that, Commissioner. Commissioner Leininger?
Thanks. When I came to Clackamas County about a year and a half ago, right at about that time, a piece of legislation, the document recording fee in Salem, was passed. And that legislation was a result of some amazing teamwork by people who don't always agree on issues, homeless housing advocates, food bank folks in the Housing Alliance, the Home Builders Association, the Bankers Association, and the Realtors Association all got together and decided that they could live with a document recording fee that's going to raise about $15 million a year for low-income housing in the state. I like this process on the groundwater ordinance because I think in a similar vein that the process to develop this ordinance has involved input from people who don't always find themselves on the same page, and through the help of Dan Chandler, who's our really effective county counsel on this issue, and people who are sitting in this room now, Mr. Messner, Mr. Platt, others, we kind of all worked together and came up with a product that I believe is satisfactory to people in a wide range of interests. And I think that's how government should work when we're at our best, how Oregon should try to work as much as possible, and it's exemplified in this ordinance. So thank you to Commissioner Austin and everyone who's been involved with this effort. exciting.
Any other comments? I just want to thank both Commissioner Austin and Commissioner Leininger for picking up on a conversation that was started many, many years ago. And it's great to have commissioners with such high knowledge and professionalism to see this through and to work with our staff and our citizens to make it happen. And I just very much appreciate this moment of working through large issues with folks. I think that's a very apropos way of talking about it. So I guess I will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you all. Wow. Moving on to the next moment. You can clap if you we have the Housing Authority consent agenda next, and Erica Allison is present as part of our board for this. We remove our hat of the Board of County Commissioners and put on our Housing Authority hat, and I will ask for a motion to approve the Housing Authority consent agenda.
Yes, I move for approval.
We have a second?
I second.
Sorry. So moved by Commissioner Ellison and seconded by Commissioner Leininger that we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming in, Commissioner Ellison.
Thanks.
We'll move on to citizen communication. I actually don't have anyone signed up in a blue card today. If you do want to come forward and comment on non-agenda items, now would be the time. Seeing no one coming forward and having no blue cards before me, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move we approve the consent
Do I
agenda.
have a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Austin that we approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. And we're on to Commissioner communication. Volunteers. Commissioner Bernard.
I'll be short. Thank you for electing me as county commissioner for the next 4 years,
That's
7
right.
months. It's very exciting. I look forward to working with the team here today and after November, moving forward and making some great decisions for the citizens of Clackamas County and for the business community. So my thanks.
And congratulations.
Thank
Commissioner Leininger?
Well, I'm really excited about this groundwater ordinance, so there's that. And also, I was pleased to be at a meeting earlier this week that was the kickoff for a program called Engage, which is a joint effort by AARP and Clackamas County Social Services to ensure that we're doing what we can to make Clackamas County a really successful place for people of all ages to live and a positive, healthy place for seniors who are 65 and older. And it's going to involve some asking people about what they need, some mapping of the assets we have in the community, and a whole bunch of volunteer work in which people get together and say, this is what we need in our community. Help us figure out how to get there. And it's so exciting. There were a lot of people there. I was thrilled to join, and I'm looking forward to working with this group in the next year.
Great. Commissioner Austin.
Chair Peterson? Well, I'd like to thank all of my supporters as well. I know the election isn't maybe quite over for me, but I'm still waiting for updates, so we'll have to see where things go. But thanks, everybody, for voting. That's what this is all about. But what I'd like to do is talk about something that's a little bit more concrete, if you will. And last week, I went to the 30th Annual Excellence in Concrete Awards program. And so we thought that, at least staff thought that we would be receiving an award potentially for a bridge that was built over the Molalla River that fit in wonderfully with the environment. But lo and behold, it was within the top 3 award winners. It didn't quite win the top award, but we had another category for buildings. And this award is for our Development Services building for all of the wonderful ways they've used concrete in that building, from the polished concrete to the outdoor area with the waterfall and how that simulated the Willamette Falls and just all the detail. So we can do wonders with concrete. And if we had a pitcher of water here, we could actually pour water through this piece of concrete because it is permeable. So there's more use of permeable type of products that will prevent a lot of the severe runoff with new development. So it's really an interesting way to work with concrete. And I want to be very careful with this. It feels brittle, but maybe later we'll test it and see if water actually pours through here. So really, really congratulations to all of the people designing and building that building for us. So it's nice to be recognized, and this will be hanging in that building at some point. So
Oh, that's great. So that was Sarah Architects, and the construction company was, I can't recall offhand if it was Hoffman.
I think it was Hoffman.
I think
Was
it
it
was
Hoffman?
Hoffman was
Yeah.
involved too, and I have more info on that. But it worked out very well in terms of if I can find that very quickly. We had KPFF Consulting Engineers, Hoffman Construction Company, Sierra Architects, Whitaker Ellis Concrete Contractor, Concrete Finishing, and Knife River was the ready mix supplier. So many of those folks were there, and they also received a copy as well. So really neat.
That's awesome.
So I was happy to be there to accept it on behalf of the county.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, are you recognizing me? Or I'll just jump
Do you have
in here.
anything concrete yet?
No, I think that's
tangible.
excellent. I'm a big fan of concrete, actually. I too want to congratulate the people who were in the election for excellent showing of the commissioners, both Commissioner Bernard and Commissioner Austin. And but I also want to recognize, and I was glad they said this in a piece in the Oregonian this morning about not calling them losers, the people who ran. And so I want to recognize that it is an exhausting thing, as the article said, to run a campaign at any level, whether you're running for the city council or the state legislature, the Congress, or whatever. And we are fortunate that we have so many citizens who are willing to take that on. Most people who run for office don't win. There are lots of people who ran and didn't win, and but what they contribute to the process is really important. That they're willing to give their time and their money and their energy to be a part of the democratic process is really important to us as we go forward. And I want to recognize everyone who ran in whatever capacity, no matter how their particular election turned out. And I think that's about all I have to say at this point.
That's a very good point, and it really helps. I think it helps everybody during a campaign understand the issues, the underlying issues throughout every community in Clackamas or Oregon or the nation, to be able to hear the supporters for all of the candidates and what their issues are, and it really highlights kind of what's coming up in the county in terms of what the issues are out there. And so if those aren't brought to the forefront in those races, then they may never get there. So you're right. I just wanted to thank the citizens of Clackamas County for allowing me to go back on a DC lobby trip, essentially. I was able to go to DC while I was out on the East Coast for a memorial service for a family member, so we were able to do two things at once and keep the cost down. We did some follow-up lobbying on the rural broadband stimulus competitive grant that we put in, that we are in the second round. We made it to the second round of potential funding, and we just wanted to make sure that everybody remembered it and that they had sent their support letters for it in the delegation, and they all had or were in the process of getting that in, and we very much are thankful for our entire delegation stepping up and supporting us so that we can get that last mile of technology out into the rural area and keep those folks connected. The other things that we were doing is thanking the congressional delegation for supporting us on the Sunrise Corridor. Of course, they've been able to get many earmarks for the implementation of that new roadway that will essentially be an extension of the Milwaukee Expressway into the Clackamas industrial area to allow for a rerouting of a good amount of traffic around the existing interchange and allow for a lot easier access to I-205 for freight. So we're very much appreciative of that. So we were able to get a lot done, and then I'll be back in June for a hearing on practical design. And actually, concrete is one of those things that are very practical in practical design because of the life cycle. When you put asphalt out on a road, everybody knows that when they're driving down the road after ODOT is just paved with asphalt, you get the ruts. It doesn't last as long as concrete does, but it's much less expensive. And I know that Wilsonville has done a lot of work trying to make sure that they love concrete, and because of the life cycle cost, it actually in the long run is the better way to go. And so, but it is costly up front, and it does mean that you have to make that decision. And it's a hard decision for a lot of communities, but you really we should be incorporating that in because the maintenance of an asphalt road is so difficult. So I'm glad that we've received this award and we can keep working on other concrete projects. And with that, last week, before we get there, Commissioner Bernard wanted to do a quick announcement on the county farmers markets, and then I'll finish up.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I neglected to mention the farmers markets throughout Clackamas County. Actually, the metro region. I run one in Milwaukee. We're not in competition, so first thing I was so impressed. We had about 5,000 people at opening Milwaukee Sunday Farmers Market, but every dime spent is spent in the community. Mm-hmm. And whenever you spend money like that, they go in their community and spend money. So it actually is a real stimulus for jobs, and it's a great place to meet people and learn about your community. And I was just so excited. I've also stopped by and cut the ribbon at Oregon City, and Oregon City now is going to start doing Wednesday markets later on in the year, I think downtown. So support your farmers market and support the small business community and enjoy fresh produce. And thank you.
I forgot one thing that we did talk with the delegation about, and that was Clackamas County's view on the Columbia River crossing. Clackamas County has been in support of the project for a long time in terms of the need for a replacement bridge on I-5. However, we are wanting to protect the freight capacity that we have on I-205 for the long term, and so we're a little nervous about what tolling on I-5 would do to the system and what that would do to diversion onto I-205 and how that would essentially clog I-205 in the future, and our freight would have a harder time. And a lot of this replacement is for freight and for easier freight access into the ports of Portland and the port of Vancouver. And I think we just need to realize that we have freight trying to access different points in the region, and well, the ports are extremely important. So are the feeders of those ports and the distribution network that's set up around the region. We have two very important ones that we don't want to choke up too badly, and that is the Clackamas Industrial Area and Wilsonville. So we really need to make sure that as we move forward, we're managing the regional system in a way that doesn't just move the impact to another area. And so while we're supportive of the bridge and want to see something move forward, we also need to make sure that we're looking out for our businesses in Clackamas County. So we just wanted to make sure that perspective was heard, and I think it was. So I think the other thing that we just wanted to mention is Commissioner Leininger and Commissioner Austin were our leads on this issue, and I think that they need a huge thank you. I think everybody worked very hard on this, including Commissioner Bernard and myself in some kind of capacity. But I think that Commissioner Leininger and Commissioner Austin did a fabulous job with our staff, finalizing a contract with Milwaukee over sewer contract rates. So, Commissioners, did you want to just add a word?
Well, the thing that I would add, Chair Peterson, would be that I think this sets the tone for the future because, I mean, we both, Commissioner Leininger and I, both came into this issue relatively new and unscathed. I think we're probably leaving it a little bit more scathed than we, or maybe scared. but it was a very, I mean, we couldn't deal with a lot of the past issues and relationship pieces, but our goal was to try to move forward. How can we do the best for the health of the river, the health of our communities? How do we provide services at a reasonable cost, and how do we make the improvements, and who pays for those, and how are those all structured? So I think we've moved a good piece into the future, I hope, and we'll be having River Advisory Committee meetings. There's one coming up, I believe, in about 2 weeks, where we can sit down and look at issues like, what happens with the Kellogg plant long term? Is there a way to better make that part of the community, and how do we deal with those other issues that we'll be seeing in terms of additional regulations for clean water? There may be eliminations of things like the current mixing zones that most plants use today. Could be horribly expensive for just about every municipality that has a wastewater system. So there are lots of issues that we'll be dealing with, and hopefully we'll be dealing with those from a regional perspective. So we're working together and not against one another on these issues. They're really important for us, for all of our futures, whether we're a growing community or a stable community, sustainable, whatever you want to call it. But we really have to be working together on these issues because it's less costly in the long run. So I'm hoping we will be there. So I'm hoping this sets the tone, and I'm going to be there as much as I possibly can, talking about ways in which we can continue to work together on these issues.
Great. Thanks. Commissioner Leininger?
I want to thank the Milwaukee City Council, and I want to thank the staff, Chris Story, Mike Kinsey, a lot of people at Clackamas County and their counterparts on the Milwaukee, in the city of Milwaukee. This has been hard work, and it's been a process in which hopefully we've been able to build some trust and some track record of successful cooperation, because we as the board, in this case of Clackamas County Service District Number 1 and the city of Milwaukee, are going to have to work together into the future, and we're going to need to work together effectively and cooperatively. And for all that this was very difficult, we started some positive steps in that direction. We've protected public health and the river health by figuring out a way that we're going to pay for these needed infrastructure upgrades. We've created a rate that's fair for people in Milwaukee and district members elsewhere in CCSD1. And we've shown to one another that we will stand by what we say. We're working in good faith in the best interest of the community. And now when we tackle the next problem, the next opportunity, hopefully that will give us even more of a foundation to work well together. So thank you, everyone involved. Commissioner
Bernard?
My comments really are about the past. The past commission may not have actually considered that someday things catch up with you. If you don't invest in infrastructure, or you don't invest in sewer, water, roads now, and you don't collect the fees to pay for that in the future, someday it's going to catch up with you. This is a perfect example. I know that Johnson City no one had talked to them since the 70s about raising rates. City of Milwaukee, there had been the contract, didn't have consider what the future costs of maintenance, of pipes, and of all those things, and we're doing the same thing with roads. We need to talk about how to protect the investments we have today, and that's not going to be easy. It's going to be a challenge, and so hopefully everyone will be up to a good discussion about the future of our investments, because as a business owner, if my hoist, I'm in the automotive repair business, breaks down, I have to put some money into that hoist to get a car up in the air, and I decide not to, pretty soon I'm out of business. And that's the same thing with the county. So I look forward to those discussions.
I'll just philosophically wax for a moment. The interesting part of a conversation that I had on the plane last night, I think that a lot of folks put a lot of value into one asset that they own and they hope will carry them through for the most of their life, is their house. We buy our house in the hopes that not only does it gain value, but that it retains the value. And the only way it can retain the value is if it's, and gain value, is if it's located in a safe community, which requires quite a bit of money to make sure that we have a safe community. And that's a service provided by the government. We need to be able to flush our toilets. We need to be able to have clean water coming into our houses. We need to be able to have a street out in front of our house that's drivable so we can access that house. There are a lot of services that go into a house, and that's where a lot of us have our personal wealth. And that's where we need to really think about when we're having these discussions of how do we help people gain value in their asset. And if we allow the infrastructure around them to crumble, then we are not helping them, and we're not helping the next generation that they'll pass that wealth on to. So it really is a interesting conversation about what government services are, what government regulation is, and that even pertains to codes of maintaining the ability to work with your neighbors so that they don't decrease the value of your house. There's a lot of different things that people don't think about that are about the value of your home. Commissioner Lehan?
Yes, as long as we're all being philosophical on this issue, because we're so enamored of infrastructure in many ways, is that it is a question of the role of government in terms of not just what we do and what we spend our money on or what we spend the public's money on, but what our responsibilities are. Because I always view infrastructure as something that we carry as government officials. We carry a responsibility to past generations to maintain that asset. When you think of the tremendous investment that was made by the World War II generation in the interstate highway system and the rest of our roads especially, but also sewer and water infrastructure, it's not responsible of us to let that asset deteriorate. I mean, they have passed that asset on to us, and we have a responsibility to maintain it, and likewise a responsibility to pass it on to future generations in as good a condition or better than we received it. And that's the other thing that public officials, I think often the public forgets that the public officials have this responsibility to the past and the future that is more than just satisfying what we want today, and how important that is. So it's a very complex balance that we all try to maintain.
Good. Thank you so much. Much appreciated on all of the good work that occurred while I was gone. And congratulations to everyone, and have a good week. And with that, we're adjourned.